You want to know how to build a £100,000 solo business? Well, if that's the case, I can tell you right now, you're in completely the wrong place because I'm yet to hit 100 grand myself in my business. The best year that I've ever had up until this point was about 40 grand. So if you're looking for someone who's already crossed the line and is now explaining how easy it is, that definitely isn't me. What I am doing though is trying to hit £100,000 this year for the first time. And right now I'm sitting at roughly 10% of that goal in February. So not too bad at all. I've got loads of client projects on the go. I'm getting sales calls booked in. I'm keeping consistent with getting content out on social media because of course the business doesn't market itself. And as per usual, I've got tons and tons of admin stacking up around me. And as all of us small business owners know, there's no team behind the curtain helping out with any of it, which means if I stop, the whole thing stops, which is never going to be a good thing. But I suppose that's just the reality of running a solo business, so I'm not going to sit here moaning about it for too long. So what will actually be the difference between doing another measly 40 grand a year versus hitting 100,000 for the first time this year? Is it going to be a better offer, a smarter funnel like some gurus preached? Is it more followers? I do want more followers though, so if you haven't done so already yet, subscribe to the channel. Or is it something, quite frankly, a lot less exciting? Well, this year I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel or put in place some revolutionary new system. No, instead what I'm focusing on is doubling down on a handful of daily habits that are boring enough that most people will just never stick to them. And I'm starting to believe that the difference between staying stuck and finally hitting my massive goals isn't about the latest hack or quick fix, but it might just be about doing the unsexy stuff when nobody's watching. Now let's be honest for a second, social media is full to the brim of people announcing their best month ever from a laptop in Bali. Every time you log on to Instagram, it makes it look like scaling your business just means upgrading your office chair and raising your prices to ridiculous heights. You see the revenue screenshots plastered all over the shop, but you never see the Tuesday afternoon where these people are juggling 3 deadlines, 2 client revisions, and they're still trying to work out why nobody's replied to their last 5 messages. Right now, that is the bit that I am in. Not that victory lap place where I've got it all worked out. No, I'm right slap bang in the messy middle of growing and running a business completely solo. I'm at that point where the business is working, but only just. I'm at the point where there's positive momentum for definite, but that momentum is just a little bit too fragile to ever feel 100% comfortable. That's where this 100 grand goal either becomes real or completely and utterly dies by the wayside. Here's what I'm realising. It's not going to take one massive breakthrough to move me from 40k to 100k. For me, I think it's going to be whether I can show up properly on the completely normal, mundane, slightly stressful and very most of the time unglamorous days. You know, the random Wednesday in February where it's peeing down outside, the day where nobody's clapping for you, the day that nothing exciting ever happens. That is where the gap is. So before I walk you through the habits that I'm sticking to every day, let me just make one thing clear. None of these habits are impressive. None of these habits make me a genius. Every single one of them is either working towards feeding my pipeline or making me better. And if either of those break, that 100 grand goal is completely blown out of the water. So let's start with the first thing that actually moves the needle in terms of my revenue. So I'm going to kick this off with something incredibly boring. Every weekday, I connect now with 40 new people on LinkedIn. That's it. I'm not looking to connect with influencers. I'm not looking to connect with random marketers. And I'm not looking to connect with people just because their profile looks impressive. Solo service business owners are the kind of people I can actually help. And it's those people that I'm looking to connect with proactively on a day-to-day basis. And 40 a day, which doesn't sound like much until you realise that every week that's knocking on towards 200 a week. If I keep doing that all year, that's potentially thousands of new people that are going to be falling into my audience that I'm trying to build. Of course, I'm not going to sit here and lie. Not all the connection requests I send out accept. I usually get around 50% conversion rate. So on average, I'm hitting around about 100 new connections every single week, which isn't too shabby at all. And I'm actively grinding away and building my audience. It feels slow. It can feel a bit desperate at times. Like, why are these people not just connecting directly with me? And it definitely doesn't feel some days like it's worth the time it takes. But I know if I stop doing it, everything else slows down a few weeks later. When I stop actively doing this, the conversations dry up very quickly. The opportunities that I get coming through the door thin out. And all of a sudden, I'm sat there wondering why things are starting to feel quiet. This is the bit in my week that is building the room. The way that I see it is before you can have conversations, before you can help anyone, before any money ever changes hands, you've actually got to get out there and meet people. And meet people I certainly do, just digitally. Most of us don't want to do that bit because it is repetitive, it's slightly awkward, but in all honesty, I'd much rather feel slightly awkward now than massively panicked a little bit later down the line. Once those connections are actually there, that's when the real work starts, because connecting with someone's easy. It's just a case of clicking a button on LinkedIn, but actually talking to them is something else completely. And this is where most people seem to stop. They spend a lot of time trying to build an audience, but then never even talk to the people that are in it. But for me, I'm sending out 25 DMs every single day to people who've connected back with me, to those who've engaged on my content, to old connections who I've not spoke to in a while. And no, I'm not pitch slapping the hell out of these people. I'm just messaging people in a way that I would talk to them if I was stood talking to them in real life at a coffee machine. I'm throwing in a little bit of humour. I'm throwing in something specific to that person I'm speaking to. I'm putting in there something that proves that I've actually read a little bit into who they are, human to human. You know, what's important. I'm not trying to sell to people in the DMs, but instead I'm going into them simply trying to start a conversation. And guess what? It actually bloody works. Not every day it doesn't. Most messages go nowhere. Some people ignore you. Some give you one-word replies that are hard to reply back to. Enough of them turn into proper chats for me. And it's those chats that turn into calls, and some of those calls turn into clients. And it's as simple as that, just because I decided to show up and actually speak to people. And if I stop doing this for even a week, I feel it a few weeks later, because the business doesn't grow from being visible. It grows from being in conversations, and that's why this habit is, for me, a non-negotiable. Now, here's where it gets a little bit interesting, because you can't rely just on DMs alone. People need to see you more than once before they have that trust enough in you to ever want to actually buy from you, which is where the next habit comes nicely in. Now, here's where a lot of people will roll their eyes. I post content every single day, and I'm posting content to LinkedIn, I'm posting content to Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Yes, every day, even including Saturdays and Sundays. And before you think I've completely and utterly lost my mind, which some days I do think I have too, I'm not creating 4 completely different masterpieces every 24 hours. I've got systems in place that helps me stay consistent, that helps me repurpose existing content I've made, that helps me to document the things I'm doing or feeling, which makes great content. I talk about what I'm working on, what I'm learning, what's going wrong. This is endless ideas without ever having to think too hard or take up hours of my day making it all. I stick to formats that are easy, so there's no cinematic drone shots over here. My content game is based around showing up every single day, because staying visible amongst the millions of other businesses in my industry is the only thing keeping things moving forward. When there's so many other people doing exactly the same thing as I am, all competing for the exact same work, you have to stay top of mind with your audience. And for me, the single best way to do this is by consistently posting content. I'm not making content to make me famous. It's there to back up the conversations that I'm having. It's there so when someone thinks, who's this bloke? There's an answer waiting. And again, it is boring. It can feel tedious to have to make yet another bit of content every single day. And there's some days I don't feel like posting. There's some days I think no one cares. But if I disappear for a week, it all goes to pot, and it's very, very noticeable. I've had so many new clients approach me after seeing my content on social media that stopping doing it now would just feel like a step in the wrong direction. So I literally treat my content now like brushing my teeth. It's just something that I do. Once the connections are growing and the conversations are happening and the content is backing it up, that's when organisation actually starts to matter. Because what I've found is, if you don't keep track of who you're actually talking to on a day-to-day basis, you're going to forget the opportunities that are in front of you, which brings me on to the next habit. Now, here's something that I learned the hard way. This thing here, my brain, is absolutely abysmal. Honestly, it's like that of a 90-year-old man who's misplaced his sunglasses while he's actually got them on his head. And I have done that quite a few times before. I literally forget everything. And that's no word of a lie. My brain is horrendous at memorising stuff. I forget names, I forget conversations, I forget who said they were keen to chat next month. I mean, most of the time, I forget what bloody month we're in. There's some days I'm convinced I'd forget my own name if it wasn't written on my LinkedIn profile, and quite often I have to double check with my wife how old I actually am this year as well. And that's exactly why I have to track people properly, because when you're sending DMs every day, when you're having conversations all over the place, when you're posting content and you're juggling everything else around it, things do slip. And when things slip in a solo business, that's when the money starts slipping with it too. So I don't use some fancy CRM system with loads of dashboards and loads of automation and all that rubbish. I've just built something simple, a simple board in a simple tool called Notion, and that's it. Dead easy. Every time someone shows interest, they ask a question, they mention timing, pricing, anything remotely warm, I put them onto my board, because here's what used to happen. I'd have a great conversation, they'd say, yeah, maybe next month, and I'd think, brilliant, I'll follow up. The next month would come around and I'd have absolutely no idea who I was supposed to be following up with. Now nothing has to rely on my memory. If someone's warm, they get tracked. If they need a follow-up, it gets scheduled. It's not glamorous, it's not sexy, but it stops money falling through the cracks. And once the outreach is happening, the conversations are flowing, the content's backing it up, and the admin's not being forgotten, that's when you realise something slightly uncomfortable. You realise that this whole thing only works if you do, and if you're knackered, stressed out, and running on fumes, everything around you starts to wobble very quickly, which is where the next set of habits come into play. Now, one thing I never properly appreciated when I started my business was just how important your brain is to the success of everything. Your brain really is the engine behind your business. Ultimately, there's no one else making the decisions. There's no one else solving the problems, and there's no one else dealing with awkward emails at 3 a.m. in the morning. And if your head's fried, everything else gets worse, and it gets a lot bloody worse too. So 2 things I'm actively trying to fix right now are sleep and giving my brain 10 minutes a day, every day, to calm down a little bit. So sleep first, which I'll be honest is still very much a work in progress. I mean, when you've got 9 projects on the go and a 100 grand target hanging over your head, this thing doesn't exactly switch off at 10 p.m. I mean, 10 p.m, to be fair, I don't know who I'm kidding, because I'm asleep by 8:30 most nights anyway. But it has a great way of constantly whirring away, especially at that point in time when you need the most rest, which for me means waking up somewhere between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. with hundreds of ideas going round and round and getting straight on with work. So I'm trying to be stricter with my sleep, sticking to a set bedtime where I can, and forcing myself to have another hour in bed when my eyes burst open at daft o'clock in the morning. Then there's the 10 minutes in the morning to meditate, and this one has been a great way for me of calming some of the anxiety and some of the chaos down in my head. If I take 10 minutes first thing in the morning, I feel like I own the day a little bit more. It's only something subtle, you know, sitting there with your thoughts or trying to sort of sit there with the lack of thoughts for 10 minutes. This point in time, this point in the morning really does actually matter, because a stressed out version of me, a tired version of me, just ends up trudging through the day and making worse decisions. And ultimately, worse decisions cost me money. Now, even if your head's in a decent place, if your body's knackered, you're still in big loads of trouble, which brings me on to the next habit. So right now, I'm not training for a marathon. I've been there, I've done that, and it didn't work out very well. And I'm not trying to get shredded. I'm just trying to not fall apart at the ripe old age of 38. Every single day, I now do a short strength workout, 20 minutes, nothing heroic, nothing fancy, just enough to actually get the body moving and keep obviously building that muscle up. And I walk every day as well now for 30 minutes, come rain or shine. It's absolutely peeing down outside right now and I've still got my walk to do, but I find that a good walk is usually when I solve problems that I've been overthinking. Then there's obviously the food side of things, because that's important. So when I'm stressed, I tend to eat rubbish. When I eat rubbish, I feel rubbish. And when I feel rubbish, the same way that everything else works, my work suffers. And it really really is as simple as that. I've not put myself on any sort of extreme diet. I'm not doing anything ridiculous or anything out of this world. I'm just paying more attention now to the things that I eat and trying to actually eat like a proper responsible adult. So obviously making sure I'm getting enough protein, having proper meals, and just having a lot less chaos around sort of food than what I've had previously before, because again, this whole thing depends on me showing up 100% sharp as often as possible, because if I'm tired and foggy and irritable and just running simply on caffeine and meal deals, then very quickly the quality of my thinking drops through the floor. And in a solo business, ultimately, my thinking is the product. Now, none of this is impressive. No one's clapping because I went for a walk, but these are the things that stop everything wobbling. And when the head's clearer and the body's working, that's when you can actually handle the pressure of trying to scale, which leads me on to the final habit. And this one, I would say, is the least sexy of all. So everything we've just talked about, I keep doing all of this while everything feels slightly chaotic around me. Now, there isn't some magical moment where the workload all disappears. There isn't a clean week where I've managed to catch up. There are still projects to do. There's still deadlines to hit. There's still days where I finish work and think I've got absolutely nothing left in the tank. I still send the connection requests out. I still message people every day. I still post. I still train. I still track it all every day. Not because I'm disciplined in some superhero way, because I'm definitely not, but because I know what happens when I don't do that. I've had the weeks where I ease off, where I think, I'll just skip this bit for now, and it always shows up later, usually in the form of a quieter inbox, less momentum, and more stress than before. It's not about being some sort of intense work 80 hours a week robot. It's about consistency when you're tired, consistency when you're unsure, when you're overwhelmed. And listen, I don't know if I'll hit £100,000 this year, but what I do know is this. If I don't hit it, it won't be because I was chasing hacks. It won't be because I was looking for shortcuts. It'll simply be because I didn't stick to the boring stuff long enough and consistently enough. I'm choosing to bet on the boring stuff because usually boring compounds and ultimately flashy doesn't. So if any of that resonated with you, leave me a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. And other than that, I will see you on the next video. Ta-da!